Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss book 15 in our Goosebumps original series, R.L. Stine Goosebumps, You Can't Scare Me. So this came out January 94. Very quick, 120 pages long. So who are these creatures on the front, right? What are these muddy-looking creatures? Well, they're mud monsters, obviously. So the main character's name is Eddie. He has three friends. Herbie, who goes by the nickname of Hat. There's Charlene. There's Molly. They're trying to scare their friend Courtney, right? So that's the main point in the little blurb on the back. Eddie's older brother Kevin and two of his friends are doing a school project about mud monsters. They're making a horror film for some project for class, and so they have these costumes. They have this orange, brown, drippy mud makeup. And Eddie and his friends are trying to figure out how to scare this girl, Courtney, because she's a show-off, she's a know-it-all, she doesn't get scared by anything. Animals love her, right? So they try a rubber snake in the lunch bag. Doesn't work. This is a Southern California, suburb, very small school. So they eat lunch in their classroom. They don't have a cafeteria. They then, Hat and Eddie steal a tarantula from one of the classrooms, and then to drop it on Courtney's head. And mishaps, and the spider escapes, and all these different things. They wind up dropping it on Molly instead of Courtney. And then they get in trouble by the teacher because you're not supposed to be throwing live animals at each other because that's wrong. So they had to write a 1,000-word essay on that, which I was very happy to see. I don't remember this story from back in the day, and I was like, well, there were no rules in the 90s. So how does this going to play out with using animals as props? So I was very happy that the boys were reprimanded. Do not throw a live animal at somebody, because this tarantula is an animal, an insect, an arachnid. They're all in the animal kingdom. So it was good to see that they were reprimanded for that. How dare those kids? Then they were trying to use Molly's dog as train the dog to bark a certain way, or pretend to be covered in spray foam on their mouth, like shaving cream, to make it look like they have rabies, quote unquote, to scare Courtney, but it doesn't work. So Courtney and her friend Denise have this treehouse in the woods by Muddy Creek, and where their town is. And there's the legend of Muddy Creek, where there used to be people, early settlers, built huts around this creek, which was much larger than it is today. And then there was this giant storm, and it just tsunamied up this mud and covered everybody. And once a year on a full moon, all the mud people come out to wreak havoc. So it's used at that story that the kids are using to try to lure Courtney and her friend Denise to the woods to scare her, because there's no other way to scare her. They have a big conversation about monsters in class, and Courtney's saying, no, monsters are real. Loch Ness Monster, there's photos of Bigfoot prints, stuff like that. So Eddie and friends think, okay, well, if she believes in monsters because there's picture proof, well, let's try to lure her back into the woods and have Kevin and his friends dress up in their mud people costumes to scare her. So one of the friends calls Denise, one of the friends calls Courtney, and saying, well, I heard on the radio that the mud people are rising today because it's the full moon, and this is what they do once a year. So since you believe in monsters, you should go. But if you're too scared, don't go. So it was kind of one of those reverse psychology things, so that all the kids go. Kevin and his friends dress up after making a deal with Eddie to do his chores for a month, something like that. And by the time they get to the woods, then they start to see three mud people emerge from the mud and slowly creep and moan through. And Denise and Courtney on the top of the treehouse in the woods aren't paying attention. And then Kevin and his friends show up behind them saying, man, I'm sorry, we had a flat tire. Are we too late? But then realize that there's other people coming out of the mud, and that the legend of the mud people was true the entire time. So everybody's screaming their heads off, run frantically. 2 weeks later, they're trying to figure out if they want to try to scare Courtney ever again, and realize that they're all still scared and they have no interest in leaving the house ever again. So it's interesting because the book title itself, You Can't Scare Me, it goes for all of them. What is actual fear driven? Is it just the stories of these monsters? Is it seeing the actual monsters themselves? Is it pulling a prank? what is the scare aspect? Each person can be scared differently. Some people can't get scared at all. Some people can get scared with some things. Some people can get scared with lots of things. So it's not just a matter of Eddie trying to scare Courtney. It's everybody has a different level of scare. So how can one be scared? And if you're boasting, yeah, I don't get scared, something might actually scare you and you're just pretending that you're not scared. So it's a neat little reverse psychology bit with actual monsters thrown into play. So no one's killed by these mud people, no one's being torn apart. It's just a matter of fear. What do you do in regards to fear? What's the level of fear? How do you cause fear for somebody if you're trying to prank them? Things, right? Everybody's fear factor is different. So You Can't Scare Me, January 1994, book 15 in the original 62 book series from R.L. Stine Goosebumps. Very quick, 120 pages long. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.